Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Right, welcome everyone to the Week in Italian Startup, where Nicola and I, we discuss the main news happening last week in Italy. Welcome, Nick.
Ciao, Jack. Ciao, everybody.
All right, jumping right in, iGenius, a conversational data intelligence platform, raising 10 million euro in a Series A. And it's a very interesting round because it's led by two very interesting players, NovaCapital and Blacksheep, which I would say they have like their own very unique investment thesis and history. So let's talk about it.
Well, yep. iGenius is a company that makes macro trend about conversational interfaces, chatbots, if you want, but with a twist on aggregating and presenting data. So it's very B2B play more than a consumer play. The company has an interesting history because it went through two angel rounds, quite big ones, in the order of millions of euros. And this is A+ round, whatever that means. I have no idea, but it's a real scale-up round, finally. And as I said, the investors are NovaCapital and Blacksheep. Blacksheep is a MarTech company, so spot-on investment for them. And remember, Blacksheep is a fund within the Eureka Ventures big hat. And then we have NovaCapital. So,
yeah, NovaCapital.
An investor that we don't see very often. But
no, but if you dig deeper, that's a very interesting company. So NovaCapital is essentially part or related to Gruppo Merloni, which is the owner of the brand like Ariston, a big brand here in Italy. And essentially, it's kind of their family office venture vehicle, which is very interesting. So NovaCapital is chaired by one of the Merloni family, one of the latest generation of Merloni family. And what is interesting is that they've been investing basically in deals between like venture capital and private equity, and they have like a very structured team, I would say. And you can find a lot of interesting deals, including The Orbit, for example, Planet Smart City, and a bunch of Nucleo. There you go.
Nucleo, Credimi, there are quite a bunch of Lipogems, that's a company on the Nasdaq. So very nice portfolio if you look at the brands and the logos.
Absolutely.
Robose is a very cool company. So
yeah.
And Nina Capital means that they also do fund of funds.
Yes.
Probably in a very specific way, because Nina Capital is a Spanish VC fund. I believe wellness tech, if I remember right. So very specific vertical that might be aligned to the Merloni's family goal. But
yeah, I mean, it's a team of 5 people, but definitely like a very interesting they're very interesting in their positioning, and yeah, definitely a nice, interesting vehicle and player into the field. And if they do rounds of such a volume, that's comparable to a very early stage VC, I would say, if they can support that. That's really cool.
Yep. So
awesome.
Good and structured family office.
Yeah.
Good to have one or a few, actually, as we talked about last week, of them in Italy. So we need them.
Yes, exactly. So that's a good news for sure. Yeah, awesome. All right, moving on. Second biggest round of the week is Treccani Futura, edtech startup raising about 7.65 million from CDP Venture Capital, especially from the Boost Innovation Fund. So one of the many funds that CDP is managing and basically playing with in a way. So that's very interesting because Treccani is a staple name in Italian culture forever, from I think the 20s. Back in the 20s, it's selling encyclopedia when selling encyclopedia was a cool thing to do door by door. Now they might need to reinvent the model. I'm not sure if that works anymore. Nick, what's your take? I mean, edtech is being, completely disrupted now and in the past 20 years for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So encyclopedias, I mean, they're strong. They're very strong. So
yeah,
they might have a future.
Back in the business.
No, apart from the jokes, it's actually good to know that they're, reinventing and reinvesting into the new, into this new area of edtech. Actually, with a platform that reminds a lot of Coursera and those kind of education platforms. The interesting bit about this investment is actually, as you said, the fund from the CDP that led the round, Boost Innovation. That's a very specific and unusual type of fund because it actually co-invests with corporates. So it basically tends to support spin-outs or spin-offs, but there are corporates developing new business lines or want to develop new business lines, business opportunities, and Boost Innovation co-invest with them into this new opportunity.
So that's an interesting way of thinking about supporting companies innovate. That's pretty cool. The other interesting element is that apart from Treccani, sort of the holding company, and CDP, there are no other particular investors. So I was checking the cap table and the ownership. So essentially is a split between majority is going to be Treccani Scuola, which it's the daughter of Istituto dell'Enciclopedia Italiana, which is kind of the beginning company, the big company on top.
The holding company.
The holding company. And then the Boost Innovation Fund, basically owning like a third of it, of Treccani Futura, and there are no particular other investor. That's pretty interesting.
Yep. Impact School, I believe, was another startup that was acquired by Treccani. I might be wrong here.
So the way I understand it is that Treccani Futura is sort of the evolution of Impact School. So basically, it looks like they kind of acquired Impact School, and now they're basically evolving it, given the tools of the company and the extra injection of capital. So that's pretty cool.
That looks like the play.
Yeah, they have a CEO which is not a founder. It's Cristina Pozzi, but yeah, very interesting corporate play that can totally change the face of the business. Yeah. Hyper interesting. So, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit of a contrarian here. They're kind of like on the late part of the curve in the mock space. Like online courses like Coursera has been like it's a play that's been working forever. Italy, maybe in the past 2 years, has seen a few platforms doing that, especially for sort of digital contents, website design, programming, STEM disciplines. So I'll be curious to see which direction they're going to take. So it's definitely not a university play like MIT Open Course back in the 2000s, where they put everything and for anything, which is awesome. But I don't think they're going to go the fully digital sort of new business kind of route. So it will be cool to see how exactly they're going to distinguish themselves from the mass of courses going around.
That's a very fair point. There are a lot of platforms. Probably many of them don't have native Italian content.
Yeah.
So probably part of the play is to be quite local, strong local content. And looking at the catalog, it looks pretty broad, from personal improvement to actual courses useful for work. So it's pretty broad. We'll see whether breadth helps in giving a better product. Cool. I don't know, but I hear you very well. Fair point.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Smartpricing, a dynamic pricing platform for hotels, raising about 2 million from Techshop and Fondazione di Sardegna. So few.
I got it wrong. Apologies. I got it wrong. I read the article quite with too much haste. My apologies to the Techshop team. Fondazione di Sardegna has invested in the fund.
Okay,
so they invested a couple of millions, I believe, in the fund, in the Techshop Primo fund.
Yeah.
And the Techshop invested into Smartpricing. So my apologies, I got it wrong.
Oh, that's an awesome clarification. So very interesting product. First of all, let's start from there. So essentially, they're helping I believe hotels with less than 100 room manage pricing across the different season and different deals. So that's a very, very unique sort of play, very niche, but definitely very sort of pain oriented. So I'm sure it's a pain for managers there, and these guys can really effectively and with a nice UX kind of solve this problem. So that's cool. And yeah, awesome raise for sure from Techshop. So Techshop has also an interesting story. It's an independent VC, I would say, very much invested in a very specific seed B2B investment. So they're really like narrowing down their investment thesis, and they've been quite active also, I would say. They've been right now. I think they signal that right now it's 3 active, but across the history of the Techshop, which I believe is about 10 years, they invested in more than 30 startups between in and out. So it's a interesting player. And from what I can gather, they really want to focus. So now they have 3 active investments, very, very specific. And definitely a cool, interesting player in Italy. It's an SGR, so it's a Società di Risparmio, but yeah, very cool play.
If I make complete your description, Techshop is pretty new as SGR, so it was launched last year, and the first closing was probably first semester of last year, something along those lines, with 2 partners, and one from a more entrepreneurial background and the other from a VC background. Probably a lot of those investments come also from the background of Aurelio. Those are the 2 founders, Aurelio Zottero and oh god, I'm missing the name of the other. And the rest, totally agree with you. Is another player in the Italian seed stage, so good to know that there is capital in that area. Smartpricing is another interesting move. I mean, probably, by heart, I don't know much about the market, but Italy is very strong with, is very rich in smaller hotels. Smaller meaning less than 100 rooms, probably 30 to 50 is the sweet spot in Italy. That means that probably the structure of managing the hotel, a lot of independence hotels, unlike other countries where there has been a lot of consolidation. So small hotel, not consolidated hotels, that means that their management is small. So maybe they don't have revenue managers. That's basically their role, that tries to maximize revenues and having a platform helping with pricing. So, automating that part, probably a big help for the smaller players in the Italian market. So, an interesting play, betting on, foreseeing the return, the tourism into Italy in particular, and Europe in more broader sense.
No, it's gonna be cool. Like I was reading that more than 7 times more American tourists are coming to Europe, also thanks to the euro-dollar parity, which has been like unique. So, so there you go, man. There you go.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for exports. So we'll see whether we are able to ride the wave. Speaking of American people, I saw a selfie from Russell Crowe who was in front of the Colosseum in Rome the other day. It's like, I'm showing my former office to my kids. I was like, okay, you won the internet today.
That's it. That's cool. That's very cool. Awesome. All right, let's talk about fundraising news. Lumen Ventures raising 5 million from Banca del Fucino. That totally got my attention. That's super interesting. Where another bank tries to actually be extremely innovative in some way. We've seen a few banks that are actually playing in this field and trying to ride the new technology wave. Banca Sella is the classic example that is doing really well. Valsabina is also another bank which is like playing a few cards into the fintech. And there you go, like another Banca del Fucino, which honestly I didn't know before. I think is a very local bank, like Valsabina probably. And there is this new collaboration between these essentially a venture capital firm, and the bank. And the bank, I think, basically committed about 5 million for early stage investment.
Yep. From the article, it says that the bank will be an anchor investor, Lumen Ventures is a small fund in the sense that they're structured as a SIS, a simple investment company in Italian legislation. So it's a company that makes it quite easier to start investing in startups, but with some limitations. So one of the limitations is the amount of capital you can raise. But probably that's very good to have a specific anchor investor such as Banca del Fucino, because in that case you have a big support into your specific vertical.
Yes.
From the article, again, from what we can read, the Lumen will have a focus on the fintech market. So you've got a very good player in your investor table that's ready and waiting to support your portfolio. So interesting play.
Awesome. All right, moving on. Another company that you mentioned that is really playing a very interesting card is Celli Group acquiring majority stake in Uqido, software developing agency in Veneto region. So basically, that's pretty interesting, and that shows an interesting way for companies to actually relate strategically with innovation. So Celli Group has been big partner in soft drink distribution, especially with contracts with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So I cannot even start imagining the kind of incredible work they're doing. So that's pretty awesome. But in terms of R&D, they went on the route of actually acquiring one of it's a technology partner. So it's Uqido. It's basically a company that develops software and AR and VR, and also like ML technologies. So by acquiring majority stake, that definitely can support maybe the next generation of product that Celli Group will make. So it's an interesting move for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like Celli Group basically acquired their new, let's say, internal IT department by buying the entire firm, so having in-house from start all the development capabilities that they want or need in order to support their business, because they're coming from a completely different market. That's not an add-on to something to a software company, because they are not, but they don't look like a software company. So they sell beverages. So.
Exactly. So very looking forward, very interesting. And last week was very, very unique actually. So I want to end up on the note about talking about Digital 360, which is also a very particular structure, I would say. So Digital 360 is a listed company on the previous AIM in Milan, now Europe Growth, I don't remember the full name.
Euronext Growth.
Euronext,
Milano.
exactly. Something like that, exactly. And what is interesting is that that's a company that has been built by acquiring a bunch of different service companies and pull them together, providing like services and different kind of digital product to companies. And then they went public, and they're like keeping basically playing this card. So from their website, basically, what I can tell is that they're focusing on two main services. One is the demand generation, so anything technology that support generation of demand. And they have this business unit, which is comprised of essentially three companies. So it's interesting how they're pulling together resources, different companies that can do like the same thing in the most effective way. So that's really cool. On the other side, it's advisory and coaching for basically companies and public administration. They define it as consultech, so consulting technology in general. And here you can see another 3 companies, so for a total of 6 companies under the same hat. And that's super interesting. It's I don't know. It's a holding company of sub companies providing services, which are in line and synergistic. That's very interesting.
Yep, and this is actually the second deal they're announcing in basically a couple of weeks, because they made, I believe, another acquisition last week, if I'm not wrong. So they're quite active as well.
Yeah, and on top of that, exactly, the last acquisition from last week was essentially a company which is Cryptonet Labs. So
cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, exactly. So I don't see here much cybersecurity going on. Maybe that's going to be another business unit, maybe an exploratory business unit. So yeah, these guys are definitely like growing beyond their niche, their main focus, maybe.
Yeah, I have to say that the cybersecurity market, it looks quite hot in Italy. So small numbers, but a lot of extraordinary operations. I mean, IPOs, acquisitions. There are a lot of things going on in this specific sub-vertical. So
I wonder why cybersecurity is so hot right now, especially in Italy. That's
well, I don't know about what's going on, but they probably have huge expectations about things that are to come in the future, and probably also the international events are, putting cybersec again on the table of the CIOs and CTOs of of the of enterprises, and
good point.
It's a moment where you can sell cybersec products probably. So
interesting.
There is hunger for these services and products.
Very cool. All right, Nick, on this note, thank you so much for joining. And very, very cool, and like a week with a lot of movement. So I'll see you next week then.
Yeah, looking forward to next week. That's going to be huge.